Alrighty then, we're recording to the cloud. And so here we go. Um are we live yet? Let me just make sure we're live. Alright. Make sure it's saying we're live. Uh, yep, we're live on Facebook. Alright. So here we go. Shalom everyone. I'm Brother Doug. As always, I'm with my sister Josie, our sister Sally, our sister Sadia, and we are the Wakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Group in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahushua Messiah. Today, we're kind of doing a updated version of a study that our group has done in the past. It's going to be called "What is the Abomination of Desolation?" So let me just bear with me for a second. I'm going to open up the correct document here. Just bear with me. Okay, where are we here? All right. There we go. So this is the 2020 version. Any of the subscribers that have subscribed to the channel where all our videos are, you'll notice it's going to be a similar study to the one we've done before, except I have a couple extra cross references I've added, specifically the extra biblical book of the Ascension of Isaiah, which gives in detail what's going to happen with the abomination, desolation, how exactly that's going to be fulfilled. So first, what we need to establish here, if we're going to be honest with Yahuwah's word, our Abba Father's word, we cannot pick and choose how to interpret prophecy. According to the Apostle Kepha, Peter, says the first thing we need to remember is no prophecy of Scripture came by one own's interpretation. Got to understand that. So that's 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 20. So that's the foundation of this study. We got to remember to take prophecy for what it literally says. As long as it's something we can take literal, take it literal. When we'll know when to take it allegorically or metaphorically, because it will the angel will say to John or Daniel, this is a symbol of something, So usually when it's allegorical, it tells us it's metaphoric or allegorical. So anyway, so first we're going to start off, I think it would be a good thing to start off actually with what precedes the abomination desolation to know that we would be near it. Okay, so first we're going to go to the first scripture that actually talks about it, which would be, I believe, Daniel chapter 11, verses 36 to 41. So this is the first time it's actually referenced as a prophecy. And it mentions here, okay, says, he shall do according to his will, and the king shall exalt and magnify himself against every mighty one, and shall speak great swelling words, and shall prosper until the indignation shall be accomplished, for it is coming to an end. And he shall not regard any mighty ones of his fathers, nor the desire of women, neither shall he regard any deity. For he shall magnify himself above all. So again, the idea that this Antichrist character is going to actually magnify himself above everything that's called Elohim or Elohim, okay? And he shall honor the mighty one of forces on his place, and a mighty one whom his fathers knew not. He shall honor with gold and silver and precious stones and desirable things. And he shall do thus in the strong places of refuge with a strange mighty one. And he shall increase his esteem, and he shall subject many to them, and shall distribute the land in gifts. Okay. And at the end of time, he shall conflict with the king of the south, meaning he's going to have enmity with this other king. The king of the north shall come against him with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. They shall enter into the land, and he shall break in pieces and pass on. And he shall enter into the land of beauty, probably talking about probably talking about the set apart land. And many shall fail, but these shall escape out of his hand, Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. So then we go, if you go to prior, where it starts talking about he will speak great swelling words. This has been happening over time with many different types of Antichrist, which you can find in Daniel 7:25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the set apart ones of the Most High, and shall think to change times and law. And power shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. So, according to scripture and prophecy, times, and half a time, the definition of that, years wise, is 3.5 years. So, prophetically speaking, this is referring to 3.5 years. Okay. So anyway, and you could also go when it talks about he wore out, he shall overcome the set apart ones of the Most High for a time. Okay, you can find that in Revelations chapter 11. And if you guys want, we can just read that real quick just to give some context here of how it's going to get fulfilled. Okay, so 2 olive trees, talking about basically the 2 witnesses here. Okay. Revelations 11:7, when they shall have finished their witness, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. So we know that it can't be some random king or president. Okay. It's someone that's in the bottomless pit, physically ascending out of it onto the earth, shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Okay. And I know some believers think that America's Egypt. America's not Egypt. Sorry. Even spiritually speaking, America is not Egypt. According to scriptural, a literal scriptural interpretation of this verse here is referring to Jerusalem, and I'll show you why. Because it says, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where also our master was crucified. Where was Yahushua crucified? He was crucified in Jerusalem. Okay. That's spiritual Sodom and Egypt, not America. Okay. Just want to make that clear. So again, it talks about the dead bodies of the 2 witnesses, and this is just my opinion on it with the 2 witnesses. I know some people teach that 2 witnesses are Israel. They're not Israel. They're 2 physical people. They're 2 people that the beast has killed. So I know it kind of sounds like it in Daniel because it says that they will overcome the set apart ones, but nowhere in the prophets does Yahuwah say that his 2 witnesses are Israel. So again, we got to take scripture with scripture here. Probably what happens is that the 2 witnesses he overcomes first, and then he overcomes the set apart ones in general for a certain time, 3.5 years. So I just wanted to point that out because that's kind of a common misconception, is lumping the set apart ones and the 2 witnesses as the same thing. So anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. Okay, we're going to move on here, though. I want to kind of stay on topic here. So we know what the precursor now is. Oh, and also let me go back to the precursor part and go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, because that talks about Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 says, and 1 week shall establish the covenant with many, and in the midst of the week my sacrifice and drink offering shall be taken away, and on the temple shall be the abomination of desolations. So let's take this in context here, okay? You're going to have this person walking into a physical temple in Jerusalem, because obviously he is making a covenant with many people. You can't have that happen in a human body of a person. That's impossible. So if we take this prophecy literally at face value, it's saying that he is making a covenant with many people for one scriptural week, 7 years. And he's, in my opinion, he's actually bringing back the sacrifices. So it would have to be in a physical temple where a Levitical priesthood comes back, okay? And then you're going to have halfway through that 7 years, he's going to turn on them, remove the sacrifices, removing the drink offerings. In the Masoretic text, it says he will remove what is continual. Okay, if you know in the Torah what that means, is talking about his sacrifice and drink offering. Okay, it will be taken away after this first 3.5 years. Okay, and then at the end of time, there shall be an end put to the abomination desolation. So we know this is an end time prophecy spoken of in Daniel 9:27. So I think we don't need to beat a dead horse there. That's pretty much self-explanatory there. And also you can find other places in the Basora accounts, the Good News accounts, where this interpretation is warranted by Yahusha himself. He's warning us that a literal graven image, which later is called in Revelations the image of the beast, is going to be standing upright inside the set-apart place. Okay, and you can find that in Mark 13:14, Matthew 24:15. So we'll go to those places. Okay, so we're going to go to Mark 13:14. Okay, let's see here. So Mark 13:14. All right, so Mark 13:14 says, and it even has the header here, the abomination of desolation. So whenever you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, so Yahusha himself is saying, go back to Daniel, standing where he must not, okay, he must not, let him understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So the Greek Orthodox Bible actually has it more referring to the abomination of desolation of the Antichrist sitting on the throne, which is fine by me. I personally believe it's both. It's the graven image inside the temple with the Antichrist claiming to be the Almighty, magnifying himself above everything that's called Elohim or worshipped. So, and we're going to go to that verse in 2 Thessalonians also. So, bear with me, guys. I'm trying to go in order here. So now if you look at the Textus Receptus of the King James, it says, standing where it ought not. To me, I think both are right. I don't see a big deal of either one. I don't think either one contradicts one another because it's a package deal. We're going to go to when it first has been partially fulfilled with the Maccabean revolt during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, where you actually had both. It wasn't just the Antichrist sitting on a throne. You had Antiochus Epiphanes, thinking himself to be a god. He probably magnified himself above everything that is a deity. And they sacrificed a pig on the altar in the temple in Jerusalem to a graven image of Zeus. Okay, so in context, it's both. It's the Antichrist sitting on a throne and his graven image, the image of the beast. So, okay, so it says, is identified later in Revelations 13:14. So we're going to get to that after we go to the second witness of Matthew 24:15. So this is a second witness. Yep, I see your hand up. Go ahead, sis.
Okay, abomination of desolation. We're talking about actually who, in case there's a baby that comes on or you get a newcomer, they're not going to know who the abomination of desolation is. Can you go like a little bit?
It's an event. It's not who it is. It's an actual event. It's desolating the temple. Desolating the temple. The Antichrist making himself as if he were the creator is part of it too. Like it says in Daniel 11, it says he will exalt himself above everything that's called Elohim and that's worshipped, which that's where Paul gets it in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, which I'm about to get to. But It's a package deal, sis. It's a one event that's a package deal. You have this graven image. The image of the beast is part of it. That's part of that event. And you also have the beast sitting on a throne. So those two things define what the Abomination of Desolation is. And during the time of the Maccabees, in the book of Maccabees, during the time of that revolt against Antiochus Epiphanes, that's what was going on. It was actually a partial fulfillment. So after I read Matthew 24:15, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to these partial fulfillments. And we're actually going to get in Daniel chapter 3 a foreshadowing before that prophecy was even said by Nebuchadnezzar and his golden statue. And he made everyone worship his statue. Okay, so we're gonna get to that. Matthew 24:15 says, "When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet notice how it says standing in the set apart place. You can't spiritualize that. I'm sorry. That's a graven image in a temple. I'm sorry. There's no way to spiritualize that. Okay, standing in the set apart place. Whosoever reads, let him understand. And I've said in our original video, if you saw our original video done in, I think it was like 2017, 2018, former sister of mine, she said, she mentioned to me that's important to bring out is let the reader understand. Meaning that Yahusha probably knew later on we were going to start saying, oh, the temple is the human body now. The abomination of desolation is going to be the Antichrist sitting on the throne of our hearts. So probably Yahusha knew this false interpretation was going to happen, and he's probably speaking to us more than his disciples, if you get what I'm saying. He probably knew it was going to happen, just like in Exodus 20, how the majority of mankind forgot the one commandment they were not supposed to forget. So Yahuwah makes a statement of, remember the one commandment he says to remember. So, I mean, our Creator has a sense of humor, all right? So he knows that at some point in time, people were going to misinterpret this verse somehow. I really don't get how you can spiritualize this, but somehow it got spiritualized by the majority of mainstream Christianity, saying, the human body is the new temple. The temple's no more a physical building, okay? Even though if you go through the whole Old Testament, mind you, and you just put Paul's letters to the side for a second, go through the whole Tanakh, Yahuwah's temple was always a building where he could dwell with his people, not in his people. Okay. For example, tabernacle in the wilderness, that was a type of temple for him. Okay. Where he dwelled. Okay. Another example, the temple in Jerusalem during Solomon's time. Third example, the temple that Herod built. Okay. Just saying. Okay. There's multiple witnesses in the Old Testament that and in Amos chapter 3:7, I think it's important to bring this out, even though I don't have it typed up. Amos 3:7 is another way we can use a template how to interpret prophecy. Okay, in Amos 3:7 it says, Yahuwah will not do anything unless he reveals his secret unto his servants the prophets. Which means prophecy is going to be fulfilled the way Yahuwah reveals it to the prophets. And I'm sorry, guys, he's not referring to Facebook prophets. Sorry. He's referring to Joel. He's referring to Jeremiah. He's referring to who's some of the other prophets, Micah, Malachi. That's what he's referring to. He's not referring to modern day self-proclaiming prophets. Okay? I'm just saying. All right, so it's important to take stuff in context. All right. So anyway, so now I'm going to show you real quick in Revelations 13:14 that this image of the beast is also known as what is standing in the set apart place. It's one and the same thing. It's important to understand what Yahusha said in Matthew 24:15 is the same exact thing John is talking about in the end times when it's referring to the image of the beast. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. It says, yeah, and deceives them that dwell on the earth, the beast. Okay, He's deceiving them that dwells on the earth by the means of those miracles. Wait, this might actually talk about the false prophet. All right, I always get confused about this. Yeah, this might be talking about the false prophet making fire come down from heaven. All right, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Yeah, false prophet. Okay. Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make a image. Make a image to the beast. Again, literal. Okay, they're making a statue. Literal. Okay. Which had the wound by a sword and did live. Okay. Now, obviously, the wound by a sword, that wouldn't be the image of the beast. That would be the beast himself. Okay. That would be they're making an image of that person that was wounded by a sword and did live, which I believe to be Nimrod, because if you go into the legend of Nimrod and a lot of the Babylonian legends and actually apocryphal literature like the Book of Jasher, he was killed supposedly by Esau in the Book of Jasher, and other legends say the reason that we have the eye of Horus, the left eye of Horus, is because that's the eye he lost, supposedly. So, all right. So, which according to the Hebrew reckoning in Hebrew culture, losing an eye is a head wound. I mean, I'm not making that up. According to Hebrew culture, that is technically a head wound. So, and then it says in verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. So this is what makes it different in the end times. He's giving life to it. Okay. That the image of the beast should both speak, meaning there's a spirit in it. There's a spirit, a demonic spirit actually inside that graven image. And cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Okay. So again, to me, this seems to be perfectly mirroring a foreshadowing we see in Daniel chapter 3. So before we even get the prophecy of that there's going to be this abomination of desolation that includes the image of the beast is part of the abomination of desolation, we have in Daniel chapter 3 verse 1 Nebuchadnezzar making a golden image that he commands the kingdom of Babylon to all worship it, small and great. Okay. It says in Daniel 3:1, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Now, supposedly, I've heard, according to the Septuagint here, let's see here, the Septuagint actually links it up with 2 Kings 25:8, which is kind of interesting, in 586 BC. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, here we go. So the Hebraic Roots Bible came to the same conclusion I did. There is much imagery in Daniel of the end times of Revelations 13:4-5, Revelations 13:11-15. The image was 90 feet by 9 feet. Now, any of us that have studied and researched about, how these, basically you flip a 9 upside down, you get a 6, right? Okay. 6, 6. All right. And according to some Bibles, they say that the other breadth, or you have the height and the breadth, the width is not mentioned, and supposedly the width would have been the same thing as the breadth. So you would have actually had, according to some Bible translators, they actually have it saying, 90 feet by 9 feet by 9 feet. So, 666, so again, so this is, to me, this seems to be an obvious foreshadowing of the image of the beast in Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. But if we continue here, we're going to see it says, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes and the governors and the captains and the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And then a herald cried out, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at the time when you hear the sound of the cornet," here we go, cornet, "flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the golden statue." Okay, so worshiping the golden statue that Nebuchadnezzar, the king, had set up. Okay, so again, and in verse 6, it shows you that this is definitely something that foreshadows the image of the beast, because it says, "Whosoever does not fall down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of burning fiery furnace." Okay, so again, so this is a foreshadowing of the Abomination of Desolation. Like I said before, the Abomination of Desolation is an actual event. It's not technically a person. It's an event. It's the event of forcing people to worship his image and him magnifying himself above everything that is worshipped. So it's like a twofold type of event. Okay. And again, we read these earlier, Daniel 11:36-41, Daniel 9:27. And another way we can know that just as it's happened before, it will happen again, King Solomon, generally speaking, wrote in Ecclesiastes 1:9, "What has been is what shall be. There's nothing new under the sun." Okay? Which, me personally, I would take to say that should even apply to prophecy. If it's been partially fulfilled one way, it's going to be fully fulfilled the same exact way. And a second witness to that would be Yahuwah declares the end from the beginning in Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10. So he declares the end times from all the way in the beginning. That's what it says. Okay, so now we are going to look at two partial fulfillments of this event that should give us a blueprint. And actually, I think I only have one partial fulfillment, so let me just fix that. The other one I couldn't get confirmation on unless my brothers and sisters, know of any type of other partial fulfillment other than the Maccabean revolt. That's a complete partial fulfillment of both sitting on both exalting himself and sacrificing to a graven image. Unless I can find something else, I'm going to keep it as one partial fulfillment. I have heard rumors that supposedly in 70 AD that was another partial fulfillment, but I would need to see historical evidence to that they were setting up an image before they destroyed the temple in 70 AD, and that there was an actual abomination desolation. So we do know there's one confirmed partial fulfillment, and that's during the time of the Maccabees. Okay, so we're going to look at 1st Maccabees chapter 54-57 and 2nd Maccabees chapter 6 verse 2. And for those that don't know, the image of the beast that was in that time period was a statue of Zeus Jupiter in Yahuwah's physical temple in Jerusalem. Okay, and they sacrificed a pig on the altar. And the Judeans of that time said that was the abomination of desolation. So, again, we have a template to how to interpret this prophecy. And just for those that might be skeptical about the book of Maccabees, almost every 1600 time period Bible had the book of Maccabees. King James 1611 had it. Certain editions of the Geneva back in 1587, I think, or the 89 Geneva had it. I'm trying to think of other ones. I think the Wycliffe might have had it at some point. So the Bishop's Bible, which is another 1500 translation that dates back to the 1500s, had it. So, I mean, most of the older Bibles actually had these books, the standard 14, 15 books of the Apocrypha. So that's how we know it's pretty much valid. And most of the translators back then would have considered it scripture. So, and it's a historical event. So, let me see here. So, First Maccabees chapter 1, verses 54 to 57. It says, now the 15th day of the month Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Yehuda on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in their streets. And when they had rent in pieces the book of the law, so now they're ripping up. Now, notice this. Think about this for a second, guys, okay? So this is why the original doesn't exist at this point. There's people around that time period, probably Hellenistic Judeans that were converting to the Greek pagan religion, ripping up the Torah. That's why. That's why Ezra in 4th Ezra had to rewrite it. When they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they found, they burned them with fire. And whosoever was found with any book of the covenant, or in any committed to the Torah, the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Which, by the way, another partial fulfillment of this, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, happened with Constantine. Okay? He put people to death for keeping the Sabbath, like believers in Yahusha, believers in the Messiah. So, and I believe that was like in the year 300 and something AD. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the time period that the Constantine prophecy happened. So anyway, so we have idol altars on every street. They were sacrificing to an idol in the physical temple, and they considered offering that pig up as the abomination of desolation. So we should really be thinking about that. Believers that still, are trying to hold on. I know there's some believers in Messiah that might be listening, any Christians that might be listening. Just think about that. They considered putting the pig on the altar as, the abomination of desolation. Should we really be putting pigs in our bodies, in the temple of our bodies, in a dwelling place of the Father? Just a thought. So 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 2 talks about the statue of Zeus Jupiter being set up in the temple. And it says, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter, Olympus, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of Gentiles or strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. So we know that this is what they considered back then, the Judeans back then that held close to the Father, which there was like basically a remnant of Yehuda Maccabeus and his family, and a remnant of the Judeans that came against Antiochus in that day, and they considered that the abomination of desolation. So I just wanted to make that clear in context. So now we're going to continue on here. And so it says, and we just talked about the foreshadowing in Daniel chapter 3, verse 1, the statue of gold. People were commanded to worship it. If they did not, they were thrown into a furnace of fire. Okay, so let's see. It says, a second witness of a literal interpretation of Thessalonians chapter 2, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, being fulfilled in a physical temple in Jerusalem, is in the pseudepigraphal book of the Ascension of Isaiah, chapter 4, 11 and 13. So before we go to the Ascension of Isaiah, we're going to go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. Okay, so Paul is pretty much quoting from Daniel chapter 11, 36 to 41, pretty much. Okay, so he almost says it word for word. So he says here, and I guess we'll start off from verse 1 in chapter 2. You therefore, oh, whoops, I don't know why I went to Timothy there. I did not want to get Timothy. Let's see here. Where's blind? I'm blind like a bat. All right, here we go. I'm blind as a bat. Here we go. The man of lawlessness. Now we beseech you, brothers, by the coming of our master Yahushua the Messiah, and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Messiah is at hand. Okay, anyone that believes in the pre-trib rapture, pay attention to that verse. He's letting you know that the day of Messiah is not at hand. Don't be deceived that Messiah is coming first. Okay? He even says in verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there coming a falling away first. What does that mean? Yahushua cannot return until there's a falling away. Until there's apostasy, he cannot return. That's what that's saying. And that man of lawlessness be revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself, here's the Daniel 11 here, above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he, as Yahuwah, sits in the temple of Yahuwah, showing himself that he is Yahuwah. Now, I know some people will say, well, that's not Yahuwah's temple. And you're right, because technically the word the is not really part of the word. Or actually, let me see here if that is. Oh, no, the word the is actually there. Okay, so let me just explain this and how it's not a contradiction that is talking about the temple. Okay, first of all, Yahuwah's name was always placed on a temple in Jerusalem. So the fact that they're making this third temple right now for the beast, basically they're placing a temple for the beast in a place where Yahuwah's name has always dwelt. And so in a technical sense, they are trying to claim a place of worship for their false Messiah, where that place, Yahuwah always said that his name was going to dwell in that place in Jerusalem, where a temple for him would be built, like King Solomon. Okay, let's go to, if you go to King Solomon's words in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, it talks about Yahuwah himself says that his name shall be called on that place in Jerusalem. Okay, so let's see here. They offer sacrifice. Okay, the Levites. Okay, Solomon set apart, kept the feast 7 days. Yeah, see, it says, if my people pray. So we're getting to that part here where it says, all right, here we go. And Yahuwah appeared to Solomon. So he's physically in that temple that was just built by Solomon. He's physically appearing to him by night and said unto him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen the human body. I have chosen this place. So think about that. All the times we see in the Torah, you're supposed to go to the place that Yahuwah chooses, right? Okay? Keep that in context. Have chosen this place to myself for a house of what? Sacrifice. This is why we can't do sacrifices. This is one of the reasons why we can't do any offerings. We can't do festival tithes. Why? There's no place that Yahuwah has his name dwelling. Okay? He chose a place physically, a physical temple that was built by Solomon and other believers in Jerusalem specifically. So what Paul is trying to say in 2 Thessalonians is basically they are replacing the place of worship that's supposed to be for the Father with the beast, okay? Even though they're building the beast's temple, and the temple's built for the beast, is a place where they're building it is supposed to be the place where Yahuwah is to be worshipped when a Levitical priesthood is instituted. So if that makes any sense, I'm trying to reconcile for you guys, because I know some people get tripped up by when it says in the temple of Yahuwah or in the temple of Elohim. So I just want to make that clear, that it doesn't mean that the temple for the beast is Yahuwah's temple. I just want to make that clear. And actually in the millennium, according to Zechariah chapter 6, verse 13, there will be a physical temple built for Yahuwah, which will be Yahuwah's temple in the millennium. Okay? If we go to Zechariah 6:11, this is the prophecy of the coming Messiah. Okay? And you shall take silver and gold, Zechariah 6:11, and make crowns, and you shall put them upon the head of Yahusha, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. You know, Yahusha's our high priest, okay? And you shall say to him, thus says Yahuwah Almighty, behold, the man whose name is the branch. And he shall spring up from his stem, talking about the stem of Jesse. So it's not talking about the son of Jehozadak at this point. Now it's talking about Yahusha. He shall spring from his stem, the root of David, stem of Jesse, and build the house of Yahuwah. This still hasn't happened yet. He's going to fulfill this when he returns. So I wanted to make that clear and try to help you guys reconcile, which pretty much I've never seen a contradiction just because it says he sits in the temple of Yahuwah. I've never seen a contradiction, either way. It's a physical temple in Jerusalem. Okay, that's the point. All right, so that was 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, and I also read Zechariah 6:12 to give you the context that Yahuwah always had his name dwell in a physical dwelling in Jerusalem and not in the human body. That was his prescribed dwelling. Yes, he can choose to dwell in us, but that does not make the human body the temple. It makes us a dwelling for the set apart spirit to dwell in. Doesn't mean that it's the dwelling place. Okay. So let's see here. Now our last cross reference here is the ascension of Isaiah chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. I'll just pull that up for you guys. So I'm trying to really do this as precisely as possible so the viewers and listeners, it makes sense to them. The reason I waited until last to do this is because I know some people don't accept this pseudepigrapha as a whole, and I just wanted to show you guys we really don't need this as support to take the Abomination Desolation literally as a literal temple in Jerusalem, but it does give you like an added, you could say, 4th or 5th witness. That's the correct interpretation. So now we're going to go to chapter 4 here. And we're going to start from 4 all the way down. Verse 4 all the way down. This ruler in the form of that king. Actually, you know what? Let's start at verse 2. And after it is consummated, Beliar, the great ruler, the king of this world, will descend, who has ruled it since it came into being. Yea, he will descend from the firmament, from his firmament in the likeness of a man. So it means that Satan is actually going to take on flesh, the doctrine of incarnation, which Yahusha actually did. So Satan's trying to be the copycat there, always trying to be a copycat. A lawless king, the slayer of his mother, who himself, even this king, will persecute the plant which the 12 apostles of the beloved have planted. If you've ever read Romans 11, you know what this is referring to, the plant, okay? Yasharal, okay? Israel, okay? You got the wild olive tree, the natural olive tree, okay? Okay, it says that have planted. Of the 12, one will be delivered into his hands. So that pretty much, to me, that makes sense why Yahusha says that the scripture would be fulfilled, that the son of perdition would not be saved, referring to Judas, okay? So this verse 3 here actually gives you possibly a prophecy that's being fulfilled in John 17. Verse 4 here, this ruler in the form of that king will come. There will come and there will come with him all the powers of this world. They will hearken unto him, all that he desires. You know, they'll give their power unto the beast. Okay. The kings of the world will give their authority and power to the beast. And at his word, the sun will rise at night, and he will make the moon appear at the 6th hour. So basically, he's going to do great signs and miracles and wonders that would possibly even deceive the elect. And all that he has desired, he will do in the world. He will do and speak like the beloved. Just to explain, the beloved is a title for Yahusha in this book, just to explain. So, and you can kind of cross that with the Septuagint sometimes. In Genesis in the Septuagint, it will call Isaac Abraham's beloved son. So there's a foreshadowing of this beloved son of the Father, you know. So, and so he will speak like Yahusha and say, I am Elohim, and before me there has been none, which you can find in the canon. That's something that Yahuwah said in prophecy in the book of Isaiah. Yahuwah said of himself, I am Elohim, and there has been none. So Satan's actually impersonating Yahuwah here. That's what he's doing in human form. And all the people in the world will believe in him, and they will sacrifice to him. So here's the key verse here, verse 7. They will sacrifice to him, and they will serve him, saying, this is Elohim, and besides him there is no other. And they greater number of those who shall have been associated together in order to receive the beloved, he will turn aside after him. And there will be the power of his miracles in every city and region, and he will set up his image before him in every city, which we kind of saw a foreshadowing of that, a partial fulfilling of that in the book of Maccabees, where, you know, in multiple areas within Jerusalem, they were setting up idol statues, okay? And he shall bear sway 3 years and 7 months and 27 days. So we know that the times and a half of time is 3.5 years because this book says it is. Okay, so this is, to me, this is a very underrated apocryphal book, especially understanding the event of the Abomination of Desolation. Okay, so again, so I would say from verses 2 to 12, give you that whole time period of the tribulation, the Abomination of Desolation, and the fact that he's going to have an image of himself in every city, in every region, and they're going to physically sacrifice to him, which there would have to be a temple in Jerusalem for them to do that. So, but that's, I think that's it for this study today. So my prayer today that this message would be a baraka to you, and it would help, that I was just a vessel that the Father used to help our brothers and sisters and others to understand this concept. It's really important to understand prophecy in its proper context, because this is, in my opinion, this is one of the things Satan has used to deceive even believers at this point. You know, if we don't understand when Yahusha's coming, we'll fall for the pre-trib rapture. If we don't understand how the Abomination of Desolation is happening, those that see it happening in that temple they're building right now in Jerusalem when it happens, because some have been led astray by this theology of it's going to happen in the human body, they're not even going to think that's the Abomination of Desolation when it does happen. So it's important that we interpret prophecy the way it's literally spoken. We can't insert our own bias into the text. It's very dangerous to do that. And I feel like a lot of well-meaning people have done it without even realizing it. They've twisted prophecy, and, you know, they've tried to put this whole idea that, you know, the human body is the new temple. There's no more going to be a temple in Jerusalem for Yahuwah, you know. And I think mainly it's due to the fact that Christianity wants to believe that none of the sacrifices at all, not just sacrifice for sin, none of the sacrifices at all are going to come back in the millennium. And that's a whole nother topic about what is the millennium, and so if we don't understand what the millennium even is, we can be deceived that way. And so anyway, I just pray that this message was a baraka to all those that heard it. I'm going to also just give the floor to my sisters if they have anything else they would like to add before we go. So other than that, that's all I really have to say. Okay. All right.
Wow, we've got some days ahead of us.
Yep, we got some crazy days ahead of us, and that's why we need to just focus on His Word and not let every get tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, like Paul says. So we need to be very careful what's being preached, because there's going to be a lot more deception by the time the falling away happens. That Second Thessalonians talks about. There's going to be a lot of crazy stuff being preached. He's not coming back, this and that. We need to reinterpret the creation account. Catholic Church saying that aliens are part of Yahuwah's creation. I mean, you're going to hear all types of crazy stuff. So I pray that this message was a baraka, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have to our brothers and sisters that are on Facebook Live and that will be seeing this when it's uploaded to YouTube and minds.com. Have a great rest of your Shabbat. Shalom.
Hello.
Shalom. Stop the live.